Monty, I'm gonna. Good morning. Good morning. It's a little bit after 10:30. It's time for the Agricultural Natural Resources Committee, our subcommittee, to get started. So, if you would, Kyle, please take the roll.
Vice Chairman Darby. Here. Representative Fritz. Chairman Grills.
Here.
Representative Holsey. Here. Representative Jones. Representative Reedy. Here. Representative Shaw. Here. Representative Todd. Here. Representative Travis. Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Kyle. And if you all would, please stand. Representative Fritz is going to lead us in the prayer and pledge. Do we have any personal orders this morning? Seeing none, Tyler, do you have any words of wisdom to give us?
As a matter of fact, Chairman, I do. Today's words of wisdom are brought to you by Reese Witherspoon. All we can do to create change is work hard. That's my advice. Just do what you do well. Have a great day.
Some of us are still trying to figure out what we do well. All right. Seeing that there are no personal orders, we'll get started. We have a motion and a second for House Bill 2754 by Chairman Hurt. You are recognized. There's no amendment.
No amendment, no, sir.
I'm sorry, 2496, excuse me.
Oh,
House Bill 2496, you are recognized.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman Committee. House Bill 2496 is a result of a TASER study. It makes 5 changes or additions to current law regarding solar energy. Number 1, it requires a grantee under a solar power facility agreement to file a copy of such agreement. It requires TDEC's Office of Energy Programs to expand and maintain its existing website. Number 3, in 2023, part of the Lee administration package enacted legislation to encourage the redevelopment of brownfield sites. This bill makes it explicit these developments may include a solar power facility. Number 4, requires a solar facility decommissioning plan to include a plan for disconnection from the local power grid at the end of the useful life of the solar power facility. And number 5, reduces the threshold for a solar power facility requiring a decommissioning plan from 10 megawatts to 5 megawatts. And with that, I renew my motion.
You've heard the explanation by Chairman Hurt. Do we have any questions? Questions been called on the bill. Any objections? Seeing none, we'll be voting on sending House Bill 2496 to the full committee. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Congratulations, Chairman Hurt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Committee.
Next on the list, number 2, Chairman Carr, 2754. We have a motion and we have a second. You are properly before the committee.
Thank you.
You're recognized.
Thank you, sir, Chairman. What I do best is probably talk, so we'll just sell this whole auditorium now. If you want to, I could auction it off. But anyway, what we'll have here today is concerning meat that's not meat. They come out, first of all, I think it was crab meat that was a fake. And sometimes we have this stuff here that is, some people say that it's meat or chicken, but it's really not. What this bill does establish that any cell culture protein is not meat, a meat food product or poultry product. And then in 2022, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration concluded that lab-grown meat, also noted as cultivated meat, were safe to eat. But in 2023, the USDA issued grants of inspection for 2 companies, Upside Foods and Good Meat. And what this all comes down to is lab-grown chicken is the only type of meat right now that has been approved so far. It's a separate approval process would be required before companies could begin producing and selling other types. And what we're asking is for all this cell meat to have a label on it, which says, as this label here says, formed from cell cultured chicken. In 2023, Texas had a law stating that the cultivated products in Texas must include the term cell cultured, lab grown, or similar wording. Then in 2019, Kentucky made a bill that deems a food is misbranded if it is labeled as a meat, but it contains cultured animal tissue. And that's what we're asking for you on this, is to start labeling this as cultured tissue and not real meat that you get from a real chicken or a cow. And with that, I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Representative Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How do I catch a chicken that's meat, not meat?
Well,
You recognize?
thank you. They make it in a lab, and it's not neat. You wouldn't have to catch that chicken. All you have to do is pick it up in a pack.
Now, historically, Tennessee has not gone into the labeling business just as a position of, that's just where we've been for quite some time. Is there any federal agencies that are working on labeling meat that's not meat, or so you say, that you know of?
Well, no, the Food and Drug Administration did allow these two companies, Upside Foods and Good Meat, to come out with this. I mean, but right now, the only thing is the farm cell cultured chicken, as I'm able, but that's all I know of right now so far, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Fritz?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the bill. Two questions. The first one, you mentioned crab meat.
Yeah.
And so today in our grocery stores, if you go to purchase something that is not real crab meat, do you know how it's required to be labeled?
You recognize?
Thank you, sir. I don't know exactly how it's labeled, but I know it says on there that this is it's not real crab meat. It's just
Imitation?
Yes, sir. Mm.
You recognize?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. That's what I thought I remembered, was it was imitation.
Imitation, yeah.
Crab meat.
Right.
What little research I've done on this, because I find this so bizarre, I have a hard time wrapping my mind around why someone would want to create fake meat. But what I have researched so far, they take cultures or tissue or cells from a real chicken, God-made chicken, and put it in a very large petri dish and inject it with some type sugars and starches so that there is a division of cells, and the small culture grows to fill a large slab
Mm-hmm.
that is then processed into different size patties of fake chicken and I guess fake chicken nuggets and the whole thing. Is that what your research has shown, Dale?
You recognize?
Yes, sir. That is what it's shown exactly. You're well briefed on this. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, you've done a lot of research on that, knowing you. That is fearful to me. Representative Halsey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for the bill. Yeah, you're exactly right. We're going down crazy roads all in the name of climate change, and that cattle is a bad thing, and chickens are a bad thing. And I'd said before, if you want to sit down with Bill Gates and eat bugs, that's up to you, but I don't want to. And in this bill, I missed it if you answered it. Does this require labeling that says this is not real meat? Did I miss that?
You recognize?
Yes, sir. What it would say, probably, if we come up with the time, it would say formed cell cultured chicken or whatever, and it's from, and it says right here, from chicken cells,
Okay,
cells
well,
of the chicken.
Chairman Halsey?
Okay, that's good. I appreciate the bill.
Thank you.
And I too, as a farmer and as a state that's number one industry is agriculture, we want to do everything we can to support our farmers. And I don't see how this is supporting the farmers that raise the food for the world. But Representative Travis was on the list, but Representative Fritz, we'll go to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize. I forgot one question, and it goes back to Chairman Halsey's question. And it's not a criticism. I appreciate, I'm fully supportive of what you're doing. But should we just make it simple and just call it imitation chicken, imitation beef? Because when I look at the bill and it talks about snouts and tongues and all that, I can see that those are real meat because they're grown in a God-produced cow, pig, or whatever. But maybe there's a way to simplify this by just calling it imitation.
You recognize?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, according to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, you have to put in there, if I'm correct, that it's a form from a cell cultured meat. I mean, you couldn't just say imitation like they do the imitation on the crab meat. It's got to say that it's formed from cell cultivated chicken or from chicken cells. I mean, that's supposed to be notify the public of that. Thank you.
Representative Fritz? Okay. Representative Travis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And the description you give was pretty ugly. I want to tell you, Representative, that was a pretty ugly description of how this fake chicken or whatever was done. And I do have concerns myself about going to the store and buying something like that. But I think we need to, as a group, I think we need to study this a little more. And I don't want to do this in a bad way, but I would like to probably make a motion to send it to summer study so we can get this right. Because I'm like you, I don't want to eat no bad chicken or bad meat. That's not really chicken or meat. So with that, I think I want to make a motion that we'll send it to summer study and get together with this, if it's okay with the group.
We have a motion and a second to send this bill to summer study. Representative Carr, you recognize.
I'm at the will of the committee, and I do understand that. It's sort of like the old lady on the commercial says, "Where's the beef?" You know, so this is where's the chicken. So anyway, I'm at the will of the committee on this, and I understand your concerns on this. So I'm at the will of the committee. Thank you.
And I think it's understood that the committee would love to have a future discussion on this even throughout the summer. If it's, I mean, that's kind of the sentiment. I mean, this seems to be a problem, and it was a theory a few years ago, and now we're seeing it actually done. So we have a motion to send this bill to summer study. All in favor of send this bill to summer study, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Representative Carr.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, committee.
Next on the list, we have item number 3, House Bill 2584 by Chairman Russell. You have a motion, a second. You're properly before the committee. I do believe you have an amendment with the bill. Is that correct?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That is correct. And would you like that number?
I would.
I've got 014433.
That's what I have. We have a motion and a second on the amendment. Would you like to explain the amendment or put it on the bill?
It makes the bill.
Okay. Without objection, we'll be voting on putting amendment 14433 on the bill. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The amendment's been put on the bill. You are now recognized on the amended bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Committee, House Bill 2584 is amended, prohibits the Department of Environment and Conservation from charging a fee for a tile resource altercation permit to a local government or emergency infrastructure repair for maintenance activities necessary to replace or otherwise maintain a culvert. Simply put, from corn tassel, you don't have to pay for a tile permit if you're a local government. With that, I renew my motion.
With that explanation, do we have any questions? Chairman Todd.
Does that only apply in corn tassel?
You're recognized.
No, that would be statewide. I was just describing it in corn tassel terms.
Okay.
We understand. We understand. The question been called on the bill. All in favor of sending House Bill 2584 as amended to full, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it on the full. Thank you there, Chairman Russell. Next on our list, let me get to it, is House Bill 1963. We have a motion. We have a second. You are properly before the committee. Representative Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this bill is about landslides, and I do have some folks here that like to testify.
Okay. Would you like to hear them, have them testify now?
If we could, please.
Without objection, we'll be going out of committee to hear these individuals testify. We're out of committee. To make sure I have this right. Molly Miller and Ann Choquette. You each have 3 minutes to make an opening statement, and you will take some questions from the committee. Just make sure that your microphone is turned on, and please state your name when you start to speak. Just push buttons till the red one comes on.
Yeah, you're on.
Oh, okay. I'm Molly Miller. I'm Professor Emerita of Earth and
Just a little bit.
Earth and Environmental Sciences at Vanderbilt. Then we tend to think of landslides as destructive, but really they're important in shaping our lands in shaping our landscapes. And in fact, there are natural processes. The problem comes when we have the pull of gravity pulling down some rock and soil downward, and in the process, it destroys and buildings that we thought would last forever. So the challenge, which is addressed by this bill, is to learn enough about landslides, where they occur and where they have in the past, what triggers them and what areas are most susceptible, so that we can reduce the loss of life and property by landslides. And the Tennessee Division of Geology has, in the 1970s, addressed this problem, but they didn't have and there's a couple of small areas where this has been done 50 years ago, but that program was stopped. And so there's no information really available for people who are developing things on landslides and landslide prone areas, which is a lot of Tennessee. Now, the problem is that this information is limited, it's not readily available, and it's not generally recognized as important. So there was just a thing in Westmead that a developer, unknown to him, was going to build 4 big houses on a previous landslide, which tends to move. So that's the big problem, is to get more information. Now, nothing's been done in Tennessee for the last 50 years since then. And so there's been big developments done by the U.S. Geological Survey with states such as Pennsylvania, Kentucky, and North Carolina. But the results of the research that they have done has not been brought into general applicability in the state of Tennessee. So really, it comes down to a really simple thing. I can tell you in 2 seconds the recipe for making a landslide happen. Just steepen the slope, add a whole bunch of water, and then add a lot of weight. And if it's a landslide prone area, as it's common in Tennessee, it may well happen. So what we suggest is that this bill starts applying the knowledge that has been gained elsewhere to the situation in Tennessee. And it is a good bill because if we have knowledge that is not being used, then we can reduce the amount of landslide damage and loss in life for the state. This knowledge is available, but it is not being used, and this is the first step in doing so. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller.
Thank you.
Just state your name and who you're with, please.
Okay. I'm Ann Choquette. I worked as a geologist and hydrologist for over 40 years in private industry and federal agencies, retiring in 2019. Early in my career, I worked in erosion, including landslides. The points I wish to cover related to the landslide portion of the bill are why this legislation is needed and is important, why citizens are at risk and the risk is increasing, and items to consider in the proposed legislation as it moves through the process. Landslides are a hazard in Tennessee, and we are falling behind in protecting our citizens and guiding development. Many other states, including Kentucky and North Carolina, have published broad-scale landslide hazard maps. Data are missing for Tennessee. Over 550 landslides occurred in Davidson County after the 2010 flood. Development is rapidly expanding into these areas. This trend is likely occurring in many other steep areas of the state. A 2020 report by the Davidson County Office of Emergency Management left out the majority of these mapped landslides. To see a recent cautionary tale of how landslides can impact not only homeowners, but also result in millions of dollars of expenditures by city and state government. Google Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania landslides. Landslides are becoming an increasing risk in Tennessee and elsewhere due to increasing rainfall intensity and frequency, and as building expands into steep slopes. Increased risk can also occur at sites of prior landslides after removal of vegetation on steep slopes using uninformed building practices. What can happen when landslides are unknown? It is difficult to the untrained eye to recognize signs of potential or prior landslides. Landslide insurance is essentially not available to homeowners. FEMA only covers a small percentage of landslide damage, on the order of 20 to 30 cents on the dollar. Who stands to benefit from this legislation? City planners, businesses, homeowners, builders, city, state, and federal governments stuck with remediating problems after the fact. A few thoughts on the proposed legislation. Consider broad wording in the bill to include both landslide inventories and landslide hazard assessment. A combination of these approaches is likely best depending on what is feasible in a given area. Include both historic and recent landslides in mapping because both are important risk indicators. Creation of a Tennessee homeowner's guide to landslide risk would be helpful, such as this Washington, Oregon state guide. It's got a lot of good information to help inform homeowners of risk before they buy a house. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for being here. We have a couple of people who'd like to ask some questions. Right off the bat, though, I want to ask, what qualifies a landslide? Is it the amount of cubic feet that have slid? Go ahead.
It could be anything. It could be, it's downhill movement of soil or rock, of the earth materials.
Some are shallow, some are deep.
Some are big and some are little. So those 550 in Davidson County include some that were really huge and others that were smaller.
Okay. Representative Shaw. First, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for being here today. I appreciate that, and I appreciate the knowledge that you brought about landslides. I guess it's something we don't think too much about until one happened, but thank you for that. So who would be responsible for the teachings and the knowledge about this if this legislation should pass? What department would take charge of that?
There would be TDEC, and there is a Tennessee division of Tennessee Geological Survey, which would do that. Unfortunately, at this time, and they haven't for the last 50 years, had the resources and staff to do that. And so fortunately, though, however, there is a very, very well-qualified, nationally respected landslide hazard expert at East Tennessee State University.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman Shaw, or Representative Shaw, I'm going to jump in there. I believe TEMA has some oversight, and they play in that field a little bit as well.
Good.
Go back.
Thank you. I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Representative Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and ladies, thank you for being here. In your expert opinion, should we include sinkholes into this language too? What are your thoughts?
Whoever wants to answer.
I honestly believe we have sinkhole maps. We do not have landslide maps for the
Okay.
state of Tennessee. I think sinkholes and floods are both better represented, and better data are available for both of those.
Okay, because I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Go back and forth.
Because on this, of course, it says concerning landslides and floods. So we're thinking that floods are already covered, or there's more that needs to be done? Yes, ma'am.
I'm sure there could be more that needs to be done, but relatively, there's much less done and publicized about landslides. And the other thing is that there's essentially no home insurance for landslides. And so people are very vulnerable when it does occur.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies, thank you for bringing your subject matter expertise before us today. Just one quick question. We've suffered lots of landslides on our roadways in East Tennessee. Is there some correlation geographically by section of the state, or where that we could assume that those road slides, when they occur on highway systems, are more or less prevalent for residential and other business areas?
Whoever wants it.
If there is geologic material that's prone to sliding, that would be, there are a number of factors, not only elevation, slope, and the type of rock, but also where it is topographically, and how much water is being collected there, and like the headwater of a stream. So there are a number of factors.
It is an even removal of big forest. The trees, mature trees tend to increase slope stability, whereas the roots, if they're left in, will remove some of that water that increases the sliding. So it's a complicated process.
Representative Prince. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, thank you so much for being here and for your bringing us what you girls know about all this stuff that now we know. I doubt we're as smart as you, but we're learning.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll go back into session. Representative Powell, you are recognized on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In college, I was told that geology was rocks for jocks. And I soon learned that was very untrue. It was probably the hardest subject class that I ever took, pursuing my college degree. I just want to bring awareness about landslides and this issue. It's hit my district very hard. I had a series of homes that literally, we had some flooding back in 2020, and residents woke up and their backyards, 60% of their backyards were gone, and got into this issue and realized that there is sort of a black hole that exists between the federal government, the state government, the Corps, all these different groups, and trying to identify responsibility. But the one thing I was interested in is just making sure that we have more data available. So I appreciate the committee's indulgence and letting us hear this testimony.
Well, I do know that even in my part of the world, it's a little flatter than what it is in east of the Tennessee River. We're having some issues with that. And I've got some constituents that they're losing parts of their backyard because the erosion on the, I guess, landslide or erosion, and pretty much the same thing. And well, Chairman Todd actually have. You pull it back. Okay, he withdraws. Chairman Todd, you recognize?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that we roll this to the first available spot on the April 25th special calendar.
We have a motion to roll this to the first available spot on the April 25th special calendar. We have a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. You are rolled to April 25th. Thank you, Representative Powell.
Mr. Chairman, committee.
Next on the list, we have a bill by Chairman Todd, House Bill 2878. We have a motion and a second. You were properly for the committee. No amendment. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What this bill does, this is under the air pollution control regulations, and this provides that equipment used in the process of producing non-metallic materials contained within an aggregate processing facility or asphalt plant, including crushers, screens, conveyors, and feeders, to be considered as one containment source. So this is a kind of a technicality, but we have a situation where folks that are producing rock in various sizes have pieces of equipment on their lot that are all permitted under a permit that controls how much emissions they can have. And this, many of them are getting caught when they want to replace a piece of equipment with a similar piece of equipment, maybe upgrade, and it's causing significant delays with the permitting process. It has not always been that way. There was some decision made internally in the department some time back that determined that these folks have to go through a long process now, or what has turned into be a long process, to just simply change out a piece of equipment. Doesn't change their emissions, doesn't come close to meeting their limits or even challenging the limits that they have on their emissions permit. But it's just kind of gumming up the process of them changing out equipment and upgrading their facility. So this puts some clarification in there so that there can be no misinterpretation of that for the future.
Okay. You've heard the explanation by Chairman Todd. Are there any questions? Question been called on the bill. All in favor of sending House Bill 2878 to full committee, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. You are on the full committee next week. Representative Shaw, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this is Delta Sigma Day on the Hill, and I see we have some Deltas who just walked in our committee meeting, and we're proud to have them. And I'd like for you and the rest of the committee to help me welcome Delta Sigma today. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Shaw. Next on our list, we have House Bill 1890 by Chairman Grills. Do I have a motion? Have a motion and a second. Chairman Grills, you are recognized on House Bill 1890. I think we have an amendment
We do.
in that drafting code, sir.
Let me make sure I'm on the right amendment. 14391.
We have a motion and a second on Amendment 14391 to put that on the bill. Any opposition to putting that on the bill now? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendment goes on the bill, sir. You are recognized on the bill as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this is the bill that we discussed a couple of weeks ago. And this legislation creates the Tennessee Farmland Preservation Fund to protect one of our state's most vital economic contributors, agriculture. And that kind of means a lot to me. Currently, Tennessee is ranked third in the nation for land loss. To prevent future loss and to help support our farmers, the Farmland Preservation Fund will allow agricultural land owners to place their land in conservation easement by entering into an agreement with the Department of Agriculture that states that their land will only be used for agriculture and agriculture-related development going forward.
Okay, are there any questions for the sponsor? Representative Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to commend you, Chairman, for taking this amendment. I think it, in my humble opinion, it does a lot to help this bill, and I think this is a good bill. I think I think we're on the right track, and I appreciate you bringing this amendment to make us, at least make me feel comfortable. I can't speak for the rest of the group, but thank you for that.
We also have another amendment that was timely filed by Representative Halsey. Would you like to present that amendment to us, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to withdraw 13685. I mean, there's two of them on there, but I'd like to withdraw that one.
Okay, without objection, that one is withdrawn.
If you want me to address the other one, all right.
You're recognized, sir.
Thank you. I've had concerns about going past 15 years. And this amendment says that instead of 15 years or longer, my amendment says that it's up to 15 years and it can be renewed again at that 15-year mark. I have concerns, and by the way, I appreciate the new amendment and the work to fix a lot of the things that really scared me, and not just me, some others too, but there was a lot of effort to fix that, and I do appreciate that. One of the biggest fears I had was if this goes in perpetuity, which is not in the verbiage in the bill, and I'm very glad that it isn't. But if you got close to that a farmer would never have an ability to get out from under this, whether he wanted to or not. He couldn't. So that's why I was kind of adamant about holding it to 15-year mark, so that wouldn't be an issue. The wording in your amendment or this new amendment says longer than 15 years. It doesn't say perpetuity, which is a good thing, and it doesn't actually give another number. So I'm assuming that the farmer has a choice to pick what he wants at the 15-year mark. He can go 16 or 18 or 20 or 25, which is much better. I don't know that I would have success in holding my amendment, if it would pass or not. So, but that was my position.
Thank you, sir. I will recognize Representative Grills, and I'll come back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Chairman Halsey, you and I have talked about this. We spent a few minutes talking about it, and I appreciate your concern, and I agree with you in most every instance. The amendment that you have, though, has been filed was for that subject was addressing the previous amendment that we put on 2 weeks ago. And the section D3 does not address what you're trying to in this current amendment. So that amendment if we were to put this amendment on in the current form of this bill, it would not address what you're trying to accomplish there, Representative Halsey.
So you're saying that it references the wrong section now that this amendment is.
That
been
is
put on?
correct.
Okay. Representative Halsey, you're recognized. Let us know what you want to do with your
Well,
amendment. sir.
then I withdraw my amendment.
Okay. Amendment withdrawn without objection. That's withdrawn. Any other amendments on this bill? We have an amendment by Representative Fritz that was untimely filed. Representative Fritz, you're recognized to tell us what your amendment is, and then we'll consider that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I apologize for the late or the untimely filed amendment. The amendment that I offered does a couple things differently than what the bill as it exists now, and I do likewise, Mr. Sponsor, appreciate the changes that you made, some of the amendatory language, because it helps assuage some of the concerns that I think many have had about this bill. But the amendment I would offer, if so accepted, would simply change from easement to contract. The easement of having the state have a deeded interest in private property concerns me. It concerns many of the folks that I work for. So it basically takes that out without reading through it. And it does offer something that I think that is tremendously important to us in East Tennessee. It's important to the entire state. But you'll see that I've added in that amendment some funding to support barriers installation for the Asian carp. And one might ask, what does this have to do with forestry and farmland? And I would offer you that in both cases, we're trying to preserve that which we've been blessed with, and that the revenue impacts of $1 million per mile of shoreline at risk by these invasive species certainly merits some consideration when we're trying to maintain the value of that farm and forest land all across the state. And so you would see that added in as well, Mr. Chairman. And I'll certainly answer any questions anyone has.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. Members, we have to vote to suspend the rules to consider this amendment. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to suspend the rules. We have a motion. That motion fails for lack of a second. Thank you,
Thank you, Mr.
sponsor.
Chairman.
So we are on the bill as amended by Chairman Grill's latest amendment, and we are open to discussion on that. Representative Shaw, I'll come to you first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to pause again, if I could, and make a special recognition. I see Congressman Tim Burchett in the room. He's here with us this morning, and I'm sure he brings us a lot of knowledge from Knoxville, from Washington, and we'd like to just recognize him for being here this morning. Thank you,
sir. I'm not sure how small of a container that knowledge from Washington might fit in. And we won't ask you for your comment on that. Appreciate you being here, sir. So Representative Travis, I think you're next on the list.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I too would like to say thanks for amending this bill to make me more comfortable in the bill. But I'd also like to take the time to say when the agricultural rules comes on this bill, that I would like them to present those rules next session in this committee, if that's possible.
Thank you, sir. I think that's a good suggestion. Any other questions or comments for the sponsor? Representative Halsey.
We are on discussion on the bill, aren't we? Okay.
Yes, sir, as amended.
I had a question. I'm assuming that each farmer has his own contract or easement, and it's specific to that farmer. And what I worry about is that's the reason when you run this out a long distance. Let's say we get a new governor and we get a new commissioner of ag. It's not in the bill, so it wouldn't prevent it. And I don't know that any farmer would be able to look down the road far enough to anticipate it to make sure the verbiage is in it for him. But what would keep a future governor or a future commissioner from condemning 5 acres or 10 acres and installing a wind farm or a solar farm or anything else that they wanted. I mean, it's not in the bill saying you can't do that. And there's no farmer that's going to anticipate that he would need to put that in his specific bill. And that was one of our things we talked about, that I was worried about what changes can happen down the road that a farmer cannot anticipate, particularly if he's looking at something 30 years.
Chairman Grills, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the question. Let's make sure we get everything covered. Section B of the bill, for the purpose of this section, agriculture easement means a voluntary, non-possessory interest of a holder in real property, imposing limitations or affirmative obligations on the owner of the land subject to an easement. The department will not have control of it. They will, that's what it says there, non-possessory interest of a holder. Then you go over to the second part I want to bring your attention to. In section 1, subsection I, it lays out the department shall not transfer, or not sell, transfer, release, otherwise divest agriculture easement acquired pursuant to this section, not transfer the management of an agriculture easement acquired pursuant to this section, including to the entity the primary purpose of actively managing, maintaining, restoring as applicable, and growing the value of natural assets and their production of ecosystem services. The farmer will have to be it'll have to be in accordance to what the farmer wants to do before he does anything. The government will not control this easement. The state of Tennessee will not control this easement. If you go back over here into the section E, subsection 1, not restrict agriculture as defined, we're going to refer back to the state law of what agriculture is and the crops that you're allowed to grow in Tennessee. I say allowed to grow, that the law protects in Tennessee. So there's several protections in this bill that will take care of those concerns you have, in my opinion.
Is it correct in what you were summarizing there that this land can only be used for agricultural purposes while it's under that easement?
That is correct.
Chairman Holsey.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to get that on the record.
Yes.
Straight up, that the farmer not only owns the land,
They keep
but
possession.
when all the
I'm
dust
sorry.
settles, the farmer controls every bit of this land. Okay.
Chairman Grills.
The only thing that they cannot do is do something that's not agriculture related. They can't go build a high rise on this land when they put it in this easement. They can't go turn it into a subdivision. We are trying to preserve the integrity of the Tennessee farmer because we know that we do not want to have to depend upon foreign nations to feed our population. Tennessee farmers grow the safest, least inexpensive food in the world. So let's continue to protect them.
Representative Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to suggest to this committee, when this comes to the floor, I think it'd be nice if all the committees stand in the well with the chairman. I do think it's important that the rest of the House see that we're all in agreement with what he has brought and what he's presented to us. I just
Excellent.
want to make that suggestion.
Excellent suggestion, sir. Any other questions or comments? I have one if there's no others. Thank you. Thank you, sir. I think there's been a lot of misconceptions about this bill that have been out in the public. We were even getting some emails that had the wrong bill numbers with a couple of different bills, like there were two were being conflated for some time. So that started this whole process off on the wrong foot. And one point that I have settled on with this is dealing with agricultural property that an individual owns. It's no different than an individual having $1 million, let's say, of their property. $1 million cash is property. And they put that in a trust for their heirs. And they dictate exactly how that money is to be dispersed and when, what circumstances, every detail of it in the future. So they're binding. They don't hand that $1 million to their heirs. They literally are binding their heirs to a certain set of circumstances. And that's exactly what this is. It's saying, I, as the current owner of this property, want to set it up for agricultural use only from this point forward for a certain number of years. No matter who owns it in the future, whether it's my heirs or if they sell that, whatever it may be, I want it to produce food products or fiber or whatever it might be in the agricultural world. So that's how I have settled on this, and I really appreciate the sponsor clarifying in great detail, very strong guardrails in this to make sure that our farmers are protected, our property's protected, and property rights are protected first and foremost. And I appreciate the hard work you've done on this, Chairman Grills, to make sure that gets done and this gets crafted properly. And so I certainly support it at this time in its current form, and we're always open to hear from others if, as it moves forward, if there are any other concerns that come up. We want to know about that. Folks that are smarter than us would look forward to their comments on this. Representative Reedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And of course, Chairman Grills, being a farmer, I've already spoke on this at length already, but I'd be more than happy to sign on to your bill, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any further questions or comments? All right, seeing none, we'll be voting on House Bill 1890 as amended. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Your bill moves on to the full committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee, for the debate today. Once again, we used up most of our time. Look forward to seeing you all next week. I hope you have a good rest of the legislative day and tomorrow. We are adjourned.